After you, Anthony. You've got to quickly tell me, before we start, AC Grayling. How come?
Well, when I first started to publish, I called myself AC. Like everybody else did in those days, I mean, they used their initials. And, by the time the logo had stuck, it was stuck, so I've just kept it.
And here we are in your room in Birkbeck College. Have you read all the books?
Not all the books, but quite a lot of them.
There's a lot of philosophy to fit in here, Anthony. Can you manage it?
I'll try.
Here we go.
Okay, looks like 4, 3, 2, 1, and we're off.
Do you have a life philosophy yourself?
Yes, I do. It's to try to create meaning and purpose in one's individual existence, always remembering that there are as many such meanings and purposes as there are people to pursue them.
How important, as a philosopher, is happiness to you?
Well, it's a very important concept. I mean, we all, in the demotic sense, want to be happy, but what one has to do is to try and understand the concept of happiness. It's a very baggy concept, and we've got to look inside it and see what sorts of things lead to happiness. And generally speaking, trying to live a life of flourishing and of achievement, of learning and of good relationships, that's what's going to produce happiness in the end. But instead of pursuing happiness itself, that's a surefire way of being unhappy, you should look for those other things first.
And what makes you happy?
What makes me happy is trying to understand this world of ours, so learning, studying, reading, discussing, listening to other people, finding out what other people think, and generally speaking trying to make a kind of coherent picture of it for myself.
Here's a big question. Do we have free will?
You're dead right, it's a big question. It's the hardest question in metaphysics, that one, and a very complex question. Short answer is we have to, at very least, think that we have, because if we didn't make that assumption about ourselves, then our entire picture of our psychology and morality would be in shreds. It's an assumption that we have to make, but of course a great deal of what happens in natural science pushes in the opposite direction.
You're a public philosopher and a popular philosopher, but you describe yourself also as a technical philosopher. What does that mean, very quickly?
Well, that means, in the academic study of philosophy, there's a lot of hard, knobbly stuff which is very theoretical and rather remote from what look like everyday concerns. So work in the theory of knowledge, for example, in metaphysics, in logic, and that kind of work is what keeps one honest, keeps the barnacles off the bottom of the boat. And it's very important to keep doing that kind of work because it keeps you sharp.
When you come up with a philosophy, how do you go about it? Do you take a Socratic approach and sit down and talk to someone about it?
Discussion is really important in philosophy. It's tremendously important to test out your own ideas and to hear about other people's ideas. And in the process of dialogue, you get a great deal. But you can also, I think, dedicate yourself to trying to clarify things by writing about them, by trying to think them through. But then always, of course, in the end, you've got to put them out to test and see what other people think about them and how they respond.
Do you ever accept defeat in an argument?
Yes. We all aspire to intellectual honesty. Intellectual honesty demands that when you meet a very powerful argument or when you come across counter-evidence, you've got to accept it. You've got to take it into the equation and adjust your own views accordingly. Of course, it's very important that one shouldn't be so minded about things that one's brain falls out, but you wouldn't be doing yourself or the great cause of understanding any good if you weren't prepared to take good arguments.
Could we do without philosophy, or has it been crucial to the formation of societies?
Philosophy has been the driving force of progress and change throughout the history of our Western culture, because philosophy is inquiry, critical reflective inquiry, and it is turned into the natural sciences and the empirical social sciences. It continues as a part of this great conversation that we have to have about how we should live and how we should organise our society. Philosophy is vital.
Who are your favourite philosophers, or who are the philosophers who have most impressed you?
Well, I don't like beauty contests, so it's very hard to put just a few people up there, but I would say that in my own work, among the modern philosophers anyway from the 18th century, David Hume, Immanuel Kant, John Stuart Mill, Bertrand Russell, my own teachers at Oxford, P.F. Strawson and A.J. Ayer, they've all been influences.
Okay, so here's a challenge. Sum up Kant in 15 seconds.
Hard one, that. Well, what Kant said was that our understanding of the world around us is in part the result of the contribution that our own cognitive capacities make. So how we see things, how we think about them, how we reason about them, plays its part in constituting the way the world seems to us. And once we understand that, then our understanding of the world and some of the problems that we meet with in philosophy are resolved thereby.
How did you get into philosophy?
Well, when I was very, very young, about 12, I had the great good fortune to take down a very easy early dialogue of Plato's and read it. And I was tremendously struck by the fact that this famous pair of men, Plato and Socrates, who was his mouthpiece in the dialogue, dedicated their lives to thinking about these topics: justice and truth, knowledge, beauty, rightness, the nature of the state, and how one should live. And I thought to myself, yes, that's exactly what we should all be doing.
Now, I know you don't like beauty contests, but has there been a most significant ever philosophy articulated that's had the biggest effect on humankind?
Oh, certainly there has
10
been.
seconds?
Yes, a philosophical view about the nature of inquiry, that we should investigate honestly, that we should look at the evidence, that we should use reason, and we should accept.
Oh, we should accept.
and we should accept counter-arguments when they defeat us.
There we are. Well, the time defeated us, but I allowed you to have those few extra seconds. Bit of cheating, but really nice to meet you.
Thank you so much.